All right, hello everybody. We are back for our Hired Labs Coding Bootcamp. We're in week 3. This is Web Development Foundations, and we're going to start building our web application today. We're going to put in the sort of back-end framework pieces for it. We're going to start talking about back-end frameworks. Specifically, we're going to be using Django. It's the name of the framework we're going to use. But in general, to kind of explain what these terms are, backend, we've mentioned before, is all the things that the users don't see, generally speaking, right? So it's all the stuff that happens with the database, um, and the login flows and the admin panels and all that kind of stuff. That's all backend stuff. Frameworks are systems of tools and things that are built in a particular language, in our case, Python, that are so commonly used that we can just take them and plug them in and grab them and use them for our project, right? So Django is not a new language to learn. It's written in Python. It's a framework. So it's a bunch of things that are already written someplace in a file, in a directory, in Python that explains how to do things for a web application. That's what Django is for. Gloria, what's the question? You're on mute.
So when you say the framework is Django, the
Yep.
instructions say manual configuration. So
Yeah. So when we get to that, and that's good. I was going to ask if anybody got a chance to follow the instructions. We're going to do manual configuration
okay.
to show some of the pieces a little bit lower level. If you pick Django in that step, you totally can, and it will work. It's just going to like gloss over some of the stuff. So for learning and demonstrative purposes, I want to go through the manual configuration. That's a good question. Cool. So before we dive into that, I was going to ask if anybody did. It looks like some people had a chance to work through the documentation, which is excellent. I want to do a quick review of the things that are probably most relevant to what we're going to be talking about today. So we've talked a lot about control structures and different ones. Sequential control structure being the one that we started with is kind of the basic. Who remembers what that control structure is and what that means? Sequential. Anybody?
I guess it goes like in order, like it executes one thing and then goes to the next and the next, and it checks
Right.
one thing
What's
and then goes to the next.
what's
It's
what's the
sequentially.
what's the it and what's the thing? And yes, it is sequential, but what's the it and what's the thing being checked?
Uh, Logic like true or false,
Okay,
or
close. It's
what is it? Like greater than or equal to, less than.
no,
Um,
those are going to be a different control structure. Those are going to be your
oh,
logical control structures. The sequential is how the computer is reading your files. It's the basic top to bottom, left to right that the computer does when it opens a file. Like when we had our main.py file, it starts at the
mm-hmm.
first character of line 1, reads right to left, top to bottom. That's the sequential control structure.
Okay.
Right. So I really want to hammer home that we want to keep in mind that no matter how complex things appear to be, and when we start talking about packages and environments and all these things that we're going to start talking about today, it's nothing more than files and directories. Right. So that control structure is really the thing to keep in mind is the computer is just reading top to bottom, left to right really fast. And when it's executing our algorithms that are directions in those files, it comes together as an application of some sort that's fulfilling some sort of need. And we talked about entry points. So we're going to actually set up anybody that did, if you had a chance to go look at your manage.py file, we're going to look at that, and that's going to have the entry point that we used with our if double underscore name construction, that little idiom that we talked about, the app entry point. We're going to see that sort of in action in Django is the framework that we have. And I sent out the documentation. Who got a chance to work through it? I know it sounded like a couple of you did. Who got a chance to go through the documentation? And did anybody get a chance to go all the way through it and get it totally built? Aurelius?
I didn't get it totally built. I
No.
got to like the first step, and then I got a syntax error with the Python 3/n venv, and then the name I chose. It gave me a syntax error, and that's as far
Uh-oh.
as I got.
Oh, okay. Anybody else?
I went to step 7,
Mm-hmm.
like in the first set of
Yeah.
uh, um, instructions, and I got confused because it says verify the app is working by navigating to your username, Python Anywhere, and it says replace your username,
Yeah.
but my username was in there. It didn't say your username. It said my actual
No,
username.
yeah. Like in the documentation, I put your username so that you would take your username and replace that phrase with your actual username. So it
Yes,
shouldn't
but
say,
that never showed up is what I'm saying. When I went through the steps, it was
Yeah.
always my actual
Yeah.
username.
it will be. Yeah. That's my point.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just, I can't write everyone's username in the documentation. So,
Oh, okay. Replace. See,
yeah.
because I don't, maybe your instructions, I don't know.
No, sorry if that
Because
was
I got
unclear.
the
Yeah. Good.
impression that it was gonna say your username and
Oh
then
no. Yeah. Sorry.
replace
I
your
could put that in
username.
brackets or something to make it clear that it's,
Yeah.
all right. Cool. Cool.
But I also didn't see Hello World, but maybe I just,
You didn't, what, oh, when you went to your website, you click on your link and go to your website? Because you should see this
um,
on the web page when you go there.
well, I got hung up on the username
Okay.
situation and I was so busy looking to make sure there was no place that said your username.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I did see Oh Hello World.
All right. Really? So you still got some?
No, I think I figured it out now.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
just didn't get into, oh, I did it on my hand, sorry.
Yeah, no, no worries. No worries. No worries. Cool. All right. So if no one else, got stuck in a particular spot or got to go all the way through it, I'm glad people are trying. That's really great. We're going to go through those steps today. And again, now that you got it all written down in the directions, there are full examples of the files at the end. And this is most important that we remember that reading is the most important thing. And if we just get the concept of where to plug things in, there's no shame in just copying and pasting, right? So try to type along if you want to, try to build along with us, but there's no need to, stress yourself too much about it if you want to just paste and copy. All right. So before we move on, I want to do a couple of conceptual things. Last time I talked about the timeless way of building. And I wanted to highlight a few things out of that before we move in. This is sort of the only design piece we're going to do. This isn't a design boot camp, and I'm not an amazing designer. This is more about the actual coding, but some element of design needs to go into it. And you usually would spend more time designing an application than we're spending with this. We're kind of sliding through that part. So this is really that area of it. So I mentioned this briefly there's a section in the timeless way of building. This is in your free coding resources. It's a book written by an architect describing designing buildings and towns, but it applies to software in a lot of ways, and it's used to design systems and things like that. So in this book, he comes up with this concept where he's explaining that what you're trying to do in your design efforts is within a certain context, a system of forces will arise that will be in conflict with each other for whatever reason. And what you need to do is make a configuration that's going to allow those systems to resolve themselves. That's the whole point of the design effort, right? So when we take this and we conceptualize how we're going to apply that to an application, we think about what does this mean in the context of the things that we're doing. So we say the context is our application, right? And let's say, for example, users want to access their own accounts. So we're going to configure using a pattern, in this guy's terms, like some sort of sign-in page, right? And that's how we're going to approach all the things that we're doing. We're going to change this context, come up with a system of forces, and then come up with our configuration that's going to allow that system of forces to be resolved. Now, if you look at just the sign-in page, that's like a generic term, obviously, to solve this problem. There's a million ways to do that, right? You can have your just a username and a password. You can have a phone number and a password. You could have those little CAPTCHA things. You could have two-factor authentication. You have all kinds of stuff going on in the sign-in page, right? But this, as a representation of the pattern, is sort of the takeaway here. That this top part can be thought of as where it says context, system of forces, configuration is the framework that you can apply to the design. Say, okay, every time we're trying to solve a problem, think about how we're going to design our system. We're thinking about the context in which we are, thinking about the systems of forces that are arising and the configuration that we can make that will allow those systems to resolve themselves. Cool. So the other thing about this that I want to talk about as a sort of design concept that's good to keep in mind as we're building our application is dividing of a finite space. So a couple of quotes from in here, and again, this is in that little abridged table of contents that I said takes about an hour if you just read that part, just skim through it. The building of a town or a building in this guy's concept is similar to software in the fact that you have a finite area that you're limited by, in our case, the CPU, how much compute power you have, how much memory power, how much memory space you have. And, construction terms, the actual lot physically that you've got that you get to build in. And you're not adding things modularly to that space. You're breaking it up and differentiating that space within itself in your design. So what ends up happening is you're not adding things, but this entire thing is already there, and it sort of breaks up like an embryo forming by splitting. And that's this guy's analogy. So the whole precedes the parts. And we want to apply that same concept to the way we think about our applications, the way we think about software. So use some sort of visualization here and break up this slide in the same way. If you imagine designing an office building over here on the left-hand side at the bottom, and we have the plot of land that it's on, and everything outside of this dotted line is the city, the streets, other parts of the world outside of our building plot. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start differentiating using patterns that are common, like parking lot. Again, think about how many parking lots you've seen, and they all look a little bit different, but we know that they exist. They take up some kind of space. So we can start by just roughly throwing this in here and saying, okay, cool, there's going to be a parking lot here. We'll figure out what it looks like soon, but that's where it goes. It's going to be separate from our main building, which is going to be, once again, within our plot of land. So it's not going to go outside the boundaries of that. It's just going to differentiate itself from the rest of the space inside that plot of land. And then inside that building, we're going to do further differentiation to make it interesting, right? There's going to be some sort of way for people to come in. There's going to be a lobby. There's going to be offices in the back. Maybe people go to these offices. Maybe they don't. Maybe they handle private business back there. Depends on what kind of business you got, right? And then again, lobby can be further delineated into waiting areas and maybe a booth to talk to people or something like that. But if we take this analogy into software and we're doing our web application, what we want to think of is the space that we're in. We could think of this as the environment that we're building this in. We're going to talk about virtual environments for those of you that haven't gone through the documentation. We're going to talk about those today. So the space outside of this could be the rest of our computer that's outside of the application we're building. It could be the internet. You can think of this as all the other space in the computing world outside of the dashed and dotted lines. The inside is just our own little space of it. And in there, we're going to set aside our own areas of things. We're going to set aside some storage space, a place to keep things, which again, if you remember storage and memory, one is long lasting. Which one's the long lasting one? Storage or memory?
Storage.
Storage. Very good. Memory is what they call ethereal. It doesn't last from one session to the next. And then we could have our main application, right? So this could be the main code body, or think about it as the functional parts that you're going to build. And since it's a web application, it's probably going to have some sort of homepage, and that's similar to the lobby. If we take the analogy of the building, right? That's where people are going to go when they first show up. So you're going to design that in some way for them to be greeted, to know where they're supposed to go from there, know where their options are, right? Then you might have some functions in the background that are equivalent to the offices, the back end, the back office functions, right? Where maybe users see these things, maybe not. This could be user space. This could be, private areas for things like that. But this, again, is also sort of a way to visualize the back end, front end that we're talking about. These functions here are more back end type things that we're going to talk about. And then the homepage would be more like a front end thing. And all of this together would be the full stack. I know that question came up before. But really what I want to talk, focus here on is the differentiation of space and the way that we can use these patterns to sort of break up the limited space that we have. Any questions about this? Cool. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from here. It's the last slide we got to do. And we're going to get hands-on walking through the steps that was sent out earlier and set up our app. So today we're going to basically be delineating this space here, like on this web app diagram here, this dotted line. If you think about the internet, it exists out there. It's doing its thing. And I think it was Gloria, you were asking before class if this is going to be the app that we build is going to be live, right? And so to answer that question, yes, it is. As a quick refresher, before we get into that, I'm going to close up these slides. So this is the site we're going to be building, right? I left mine up from the last time, and I'm going to show you destroying it and starting over from complete scratch because I want you all to be comfortable doing that. That's something that's great about Python Anywhere. You can build up to a point, and if you get totally stuck and lost, you can just break and throw it out and start again. Or if you're like, you know what, I want to build with a different framework. I want to build a different app and not even want to use this at all. You just throw this out and start over. It's totally easy, right? So, but again, to refresh your memory, this is the app that we're going to build. This is the homepage. You're going to have a simple navigation to an about page with nothing on it, but we're going to go through navigating, the setting up this navigation to talk about how that's handled, how it's done. And the main app that we're going to build is this to-do list. I mean, a tasks list, right? So we can add a task. We can say new task. We can give it a due date of whenever. Hit submit, it'll save. We can update that task once we've completed it, possibly. See, now it's complete. And then we can delete our task with a delete button that gives us a little warning that says, hey, you sure you want to do that? And we'll say, okay, and it deletes it, right? So that's what we're going to build. And the reason we do a to-do list is because these functions, the creating of a task, updating, looking at it here in the list once you've created it, and the deleting it, the create, read, update, and delete functions are all that all applications are, no matter if they're web applications, mobile applications, desktop applications, it's all those functions. So we're using this as like an example training for how to do it. But, excuse me, this is on the live internet. So before I take this down, if you go to this website right now, this Hired Labs DI42 pythonanywhere.com/to-do, you should see the same thing. You should be able to see this site, right? I'm going to crash it here in a minute, so you got to be quick. But your site will similarly be Shadiqua. Your username will be here. It's not going to say your username, but it'll be your username here, and it'll say. But this is the same thing with the pythonanywhere.com and then to do. So this is the app that we're going to build, and I'm going to throw this out, and we're going to start from scratch together building it. So yes, Gloria, you got a question?
Yeah, so this is live versus the background coding. So for home, about, and to-do list is just like a drop-down menu.
Yeah, these are just like on the top navigation bar things that are up here. We didn't make it collapse, but yeah, you could make it like a drop-down menu if you wanted to. But yeah, that's what that is.
So do we have to call the to-do list, or could it be another thing, or it has to be exactly the
If
way
you don't do it exactly like I do it, the internet's going to collapse on itself. No, so I'm going to show you. You can name those things whatever you want to. And that's a good question. When we get to it, I'm going to highlight as we go. And that's actually a great question before we get really started about this. Sometimes when we name things, there's going to be flexibility in what you name it. And I'll call that out as best I can to say it doesn't matter what this is. You can label this whatever you like. Sometimes it's really best to follow conventions, right? And I'll highlight when that is. So calling this to-do list right here probably doesn't matter, but there might be places where, I'll want you to call it the same thing I'm calling it, just so that it doesn't break. But I'll try to make that clear.
I have a quick question about,
Sure.
like, I know that we're doing this for the purposes of learning coding, but like, could you use a free Python Anywhere app to create a proprietary website? Like, if you get really good, could you do that?
Yeah, you totally could. Because the only real difference between this free version of it and the other ones, you're gonna have some limited places somewhere. Like this is gonna turn itself off after a while, after 3 months, and it'll just die. And there's some limits to it every other place, but it's not that bad on the free version, right? But yeah, you could take this up to its limits on the free version and then decide where you want to go from there. But it's totally viable to get started with things. But so I'm going to get started by throwing this out, right? So this is the end state that we want to get to. And I'm going to just go down to this delete button. I'm on the web tab. Sorry, I kind of skimmed over that part. More on the web tab. We're going to come back here and set our thing up for anybody that hasn't gone through that part of the documentation yet. But I'm there now. This is where we're going to do a lot of our configurations. So I'll go through these pieces in a minute. Skipping all the way down here to the bottom to delete this. I could disable it, but I'm just going to delete it, right? And get rid of it. Just going to say, oh, no, don't do that. And I'll say, yep, no, I delete this. Now I don't have any. No web app. This should be gone if I refresh it. See, it's going to say, no, doesn't exist. And the last thing I need to do, if you're doing something similar at home, is I need to get rid of the files that are in here. So I'm in my home directory in a bash console. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out those files. I'll make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Just show what's in here. So I've got this double underscore pycache thing. And I've got, here's our classes in our main.py, and then I've got this my site and this venv directory. So I'm going to throw out those directories and the pycache thing. So I'm going to do rm with recursive and the force flag to make sure it just takes all that stuff. I'm going to use my tab complete to get rid of all of these directories all at once. So I'm going to throw all this stuff out. And it should hopefully not break anything, but just take a second, throw all that stuff out. And I will be back to a clean slate to get started over at the point that we ended last time. I just kept that up so that we could show a web app.
And do we need to do that too? Like,
you don't need to. No, this is
okay.
to make sure that I'm showing you something that, like, I encourage you to do this for practice, but not right now if you don't want to. If you've already built up to a point, you totally can trash it, start over. It's good practice to do it. I don't want you to be afraid to do it. Yeah, I realize. What's the question?
Is this deleting the site on the back end?
Yep, it's deleting
Okay.
everything. So that's I have no more files related to my project at all. So now I'm back to the starting point that we were at in class last time, where we just have our classes.py file and our main.py file and our readme.txt, and there's no web app at all. Cool. All right, so here is where we start. For anybody who did not start, anybody who has, you may just kind of watch this part, make sure you did it right, or chime in with questions if you got them. I really want to make sure that we understand why we're doing all this. And again, keep in mind, when we think about differentiating in space, we're setting up our kind of plot of land where we're going to start building our application. Right now, we're setting up aside some space on the internet within which we will be building, right? So on Python Anywhere, up here at the top, you got dashboard, consoles, files, web tab. I'm on the web tab, and it says I have no web apps because I just deleted mine. So now I'm going to add a new web app, this big blue button right here, with a plus sign next to it. And this is explaining what my domain name is. And this is, again, my username. This will be your username, pythonanywhere.com. And this is one that's free. So if you wanted to set up a storefront of some sort and change this to your own personalized username, you'd have to upgrade. For us, for learning purposes, the free version is fine. The thing that I really want to highlight here, though, is this domain name idea, right? This is something it's in common language now. We use it all the time. But what I want you to remember is that it's just files and directories, and it follows the Linux pattern. So the domain name is what you can think of as your root. This is like the home folder, the tilde with a slash. It's where we get started on your actual web application. If you look up here, this is the domain name for the site that we're on, right? And basically what they're doing when we create a user instance on here, they have a folder called users, and then they give us all. That's why we have to have unique usernames, because it's just a Linux directory that they have somewhere on a server, as they call it, right? That's just out there that we can access. And when we make a web app, it just makes another directory, right? So keeping in mind that all of this is structured in the same way as files in directories. So our domain name by default is going to be username, our .pythonanywhere.com, and then we're then going to make other things off of that. So think of this as where our home page is going to go by default. Aurelia's got a question.
Yeah, this may be maybe too early to ask this, but say that we finish this class and we're ready to build our website.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to go through Python Anywhere, or can we go anywhere else?
Yeah, no, I'm locking you in, man. I actually secretly work for Python Anywhere, and this is vendor lock-in. You're stuck. It was a timeshare the entire time. No, I'm going to show you. So I'll show you. That's a really great question, actually. So I'm going to show you one of the reasons also why somebody asked about manual setup, which we're going to get to here in a second. I don't want to do the manual setup. Is again, I don't want you to be stuck in Python Anywhere. We are going to use one of their files in there that's like, we're going to make some adjustments. Again, if you followed the thing, the WSGI file or the WSGI file, I like to call it that. I'm not sure if that's how it's actually pronounced, but that file comes with the Django project. So we could really do the things in there and just route it to this. And then that way you have nothing tying you to Python Anywhere. So this that we build can be taken and deployed wherever you like. And at the end of the class, once we build this, so we'll build this up to hopefully the day before the last day. And then the last day, we're going to talk about, as a little bit of kind of foreshadowing, things like Git and GitHub, where we can save our code, our projects, our apps, and then deploy them wherever we like on whatever platform outside of Python Anywhere. So no, we won't be stuck in this, and this isn't going to be the only way we can do this. That's a good question, though. Any other questions before we press
Well,
on?
I guess along the lines of that, so because when I think about coding, I think that there's some place somewhere in my computer where I can just like enter this information.
Sure.
But does that mean that we have to use some sort of coding platform in order to do all the things that we do? Like not just Python, but whatever coding platforms?
No, yeah, that's also a good question. So all these things that we've done, you can be doing on your own terminal at home in your own computer. Like all computers are going to have some sort of interaction with the command line interface. It's called different things on Windows systems. It's, the commands are different, but you absolutely can. And you could have been doing that up to now. It's actually one of the things that I did want to mention for anybody who may have been doing that. Some folks in other classes had started doing in their own personal computers, and that's possible. But then this is like this right here, like I told you, is the internet portion of it. So we're like setting up on the internet as well. But yeah, you could absolutely just do local development and do things just on your local machine. And it's largely the same steps that we're going to set up, like when we start setting up the Python project as well, which we're going to do today. You could do that all locally as well. Yeah, it really is. What's up?
So I could build my own file, like my own folder, without having like to create new folder or whatever. I can just kind of create one on the back end.
I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean, create folder? Where?
It's probably a conversation for Discord. I'll leave it for
Okay.
that. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. We can get into like specifics about stuff at another time for sure. All right, cool. So, any question about domain name though, and basic structure about how we're going to be structuring this? Because again, there's patterns. Keep an eye up here at the top of the browser. These patterns we're going to be following a lot with the slashes, same as the Linux file system pattern. That's what the internet is built on, Linux. So it's good to know. All right, nothing else about domain names. Then we move on to our next selection. So this is what we were mentioning before, is the web framework choice. We are going to be using Django, most definitely, but I want to do manual configuration for the reasons I just mentioned. I don't want to skip too many of the setup steps and make it too automatic and too tied into Python anywhere. I want you all to understand where things are, what files can be manipulated, and how you can move this to another platform if you want to deploy somewhere else once we're done with this class. All right, the next one is selecting the Python version. So we don't have any reason to choose anything but the latest version, but you see there's all these different ones. We talked a little bit about version before. This is a pretty decent, relevant choice. The most recent one is usually what you're going to want, unless, again, you have a project that specifies a specific version, and then you should choose that. But for us, 3.10 is good. It's not the most recent version that exists in the world. It's just the most recent version these guys have. So also be aware of that. If you do move this into another platform, you'll be in 3.10, and then you'll have to make sure that your Python version, wherever you take this, is 3.10 and not like, say, the newest is 3.12. All right, now this is the last little thing, gives a warning about manual configuration. And these are the files that I was going to talk about. We're going to go and mess with. So this WSGI configuration file is typically stored at this sort of path, right? So this is something that could be in your local path, if you're, or wherever you're, whatever server, whatever computer you're on, is typically, this is where you're going to keep it. But this is the part that they handle for us a little bit in Python anywhere. So if you want to move it to somewhere else, you basically just put this WSGI configuration file in the right place in that other place that's not Python anywhere, and it'll do what this does. This WSGI file is what kind of routes the internet traffic, gets it going, gets it started down that internet application thing. It's a bridge between your source code and the internet. Is that clear? Because we're going to be hopping into that and making some adjustments to our WSGI file. So any question on that conceptually? All right, cool. The other thing that's mentioned here is a virtual env. That means a virtual environment. So we're definitely going to spend some time talking about that, make sure that we're clear on what a virtual environment is and does and why we use them. But we'll go into that soon. Basically, it's just a space where we're going to keep our versions of things. Like we have the version of Python, we're going to keep our versions of things separate for a specific project. And it's a very good habit to get into anytime you're working with, even outside of Python, but it's very, very important in Python projects. So from here, I'm going to hit next. I'm just going to start doing some stuff, take a few seconds, and it'll create our app, or I guess my app. And here we are. So back at this page, which was last time we were here, I destroyed my application. But we're going to walk through it, just kind of quick orientation. Here is the URL, like I said, the base domain. So the uniform resource location, or the address on the internet that our site is going to be, or that my site is going to be. And if you recall, this is where it was before. It said coming soon. Once I destroyed my app and there was nothing here. Now when I refresh it, it should just say hello world, right? So this is the point that you should be able to get to with a website by just clicking through, and we haven't really done any coding of any kind. We've just set up the basic Python Anywhere web app to get to this point. If you navigate to your own URL, you should see something that says hello world. It says this is the default. There's some more information. This can take you back to your web setup page if you don't know how to get there. I think. Yep, there we go. It takes you back if you're so inclined to go that direction. But I'm gonna keep this open because we're gonna move back and forth. Shadiq, to your question, I'm gonna keep my Bash console open. I'm gonna keep my web tab open because we're gonna be going back and forth through here. I'm gonna keep my actual web page that I'm working on open and flip between the three of those. All right, so real fast rundown of what's on this page. We're going to go through some pieces of it today and become intimately familiar with them, but very fast overview. We've already talked about this is just the title configuration for, but this is also how you can get to your web page. So this is the base domain, the root domain. This reload button is really important. Anytime we make changes to our code or any of the configurations on this page, we're going to want to reload it before we go and look at it because this reloads the source code on the server, right? So this is pushing our changes up to some sort of server. This tells us how long our free version of the thing is good for, 3 months. This is some analytics if you really care. I guess a whole bunch of bots are hitting my site. Maybe some of you jumped on there and looked at it. Code section. This is definitely where we're going to get to where when we make our source code here in a second, because remember I threw out those directories that I had. We don't have any source code yet, but we're going to put those directories here, and that's going to tell this configuration where to find all the code to actually run our application. This is the WSGI file that I mentioned. We're going to come back here in a second and do some changes on that. But this is how you get to it. Here also is another path through the virtual env. This is who was that asking? Was that Young? Was that Alex asking before class that you had a problem here? This might be where you were having that issue on the virtual env, which we'll set up soon. Log files, the most important out of these, when something breaks, is this middle one, the error log. So keep that in mind that even if you use this for a production site or something like that, and something breaks, error log is usually what you need to check out to find out what's wrong. And we'll go through some of those today. Static files, that's going to be something we do down the line for usually pictures, videos, some other script sorts of things, maybe JavaScript. When we do that, we'll put that in static files. Down the security tab, there is one thing that I want to do, and I encourage everyone else to do. It's not required, but down here, this thing says an HTTPS certificate. First of all, I think I may have asked before. Does anybody know off the top of their head what HTTPS stands for? Nobody.
Whether it's a secure site or not?
That's what the S stands for. S is secure. That's good. That's good. It could just be HTTP. So what do those 4 letters stand for? Nothing? Okay. All right. So this is an important concept. Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And if you think about what a protocol is we're in the military and we all used radios, right? The protocol was like, this is me, radio check, over, Roger out, like how we talked on the radio, the call signs we use, the frequency sets we use. That's a protocol. Hypertext, don't get hung up on that term. It's just text files that's being, it's written in a certain way. And the transfer is like how these files are transferred between systems. That's it. So HTTP is a system of rules that says how you transfer files from one system to another, one computer to another. That's what HTTP is. You can go look it up. It's a specification that's like really boring to read, but it exists online, and it's just a document that says how this is supposed to work. And so what this backend framework of Django is doing is helping us with that. The HTTP part is help handling the protocols. It's got things built in to do that. And that's what we're going to be dealing with as we build our web application, is routing our files that are in our directories through this protocol so other people can find them, right? So important concept. We'll see it a few times. This is what makes it secure, this little thing in here. But down here, we're going to say force HTTPS. So again, if we leave this defaults to disabled, and that means that it's just an insecure site. If we just flip it to enabled, there's no reason not to. I encourage you to do that to yours. It's okay. The other thing I want to draw your attention to, but I'm not going to use, is this password protection piece. So when you're developing things and when you're working on it, you can put a password that's going to be stored here in plain text, a username and password that people will need to use to get to the site. That might be helpful if you don't want people going there, if you want to keep it, hidden while you're working on it, kind of things like that. You want to develop on here further, mess around with it and stuff like that. And you don't want bots or other people going to your site while you're doing it. I'm not going to do that. Just want to make you aware of it. So that's a quick orientation of what's on this page. Let's get into some of our first adjustments and things that we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do before we do any adjustments on any of these things, we're going to go back to our Bash console and we're going to make our virtual environment, because that's a really important concept, and it's normally where we start all of our projects. And if you recall, we cleared everything out so that all I have, I'm going to clear this up to make sure that we're absolutely positive on what's in our directory. We just have our README and our old class files from before. There's nothing else in here, right? So we don't have any other directories. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a virtual environment, right? So the purpose of a virtual environment is to set aside space in our computer where we can keep project-specific information, in this sense, packages, right? So Python uses packages. Don't get hung up on that term. It's just files and directories, but they're things that can be resourced, like accessed by name, and then we could use the tools inside of those packages. And we use a tool called pip, which is a recursive thing. It's pip install package, and it's like a recursive name within itself. We talked about recursion. This is one example of it, I guess. But pip is the tool that Python uses to handle its packages, to install new ones, to uninstall them, and things like that. So what I'm going to do here is, outside, before I do any virtual environment, anything, I'm going to show you what packages we have by calling pip list right here in my Bash console, first in the home directory. And it should give me this really long list of a whole bunch of stuff. Now, these are all packages that come standard in the Python Anywhere environment. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our own environment, our own virtual environment, to stand separate of these things. And the reason we do is because, let's say, for example, we want to use the docutils package, but we want to use, this as version 0.17.1. Let's say we want to use version 3.10.2. There will be a conflict between this system package that's here and what we want to do in our project, if we don't set aside some space where we can put the package with the right version that we want in that area. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a virtual environment and show you that it sets itself aside from all this, and we don't see all of this, to make this a little bit clearer. So to do that, we're going to use Python 3 like we have in the past. But this time, here, I can make this a little larger so we can see it easier. This time, we're going to use the M flag, which stands for module. It means we're going to use a built-in module in Python by some other name, right? So we're going to pass it some module. The name of this module is VN, which is short for virtual environment. Then you're going to pass it a name. So you can choose whatever name you want to. I am going to use, redundantly, VEnv. This is, again, it's fairly standard, just a quick one to use. You can name it whatever you like. It doesn't matter. I'm going to name it this so that when we're activating it in the future, we're always calling it by this name, and kind of hammers home that that's the name of this module, and again, for demonstrative purposes. But this second VEnv can be whatever you like. Does not matter. So when I hit enter on this, might take a little while to set up a virtual environment. So while this is doing it, I'm going to give it a minute to do that, so we're not just staring at the screen. We're going to go back, to our web app page, and we're going to start looking at the WSGI file, make some changes there while this virtual environment is getting set up. All right, so I'm going to leave that Bash console open. I'm going to navigate back here to just the web tab, right? So we got Bash console files. I'm on the web tab. I'm going to scroll down to where it says code right here. And then underneath code says WSGI configuration file. And there's a link right there. I'm just going to open that up. It's going to take me right to this file, right? And so as we see, it's not in my home directory. If we look up here, it's in this var www place, and that's typically where it's going to be stored, in whatever system you store it in, right? So if we scroll down this WSGI file, we see a bunch of things commented out. I mentioned this before. Anything that starts with this pound or the hashtag is going to be a comment. The computer's not going to read it, so that's just for humans to read, and it won't run. And here's our Hello World app. You see, it's just a all caps, which is technically, it's called a constant, but there are no real constants in Python. This is a variable. We put it all caps again for humans to understand that it's not going to change, to be treated like a constant in this thing. And then it's a string with some HTML. Don't worry about that if you don't know HTML. We'll talk about that when we do front end stuff. But as you can see, here's our hello world statement that came out at us. And there's some more, the information that came with it. It says default page. Then here's our familiar application thing. this is all interesting stuff. This is basically handling, there's an if else statement that we're used to. It says if everything's good, we give this 200. If it's bad, 404, which maybe you've heard of, the page not found error, right? So this is where all those interactions are happening. And this is what's called a pure WSGI program. So this is the hello world that we've got that we're looking at here, right? That's all this page right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the same thing and we're just going to scroll down just a little bit further. There's a section here called Django. And it starts on line about 76. It goes down to line 89. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight all those. I'm going to take comments off of that. So I'm going to hit Control and hit slash, and it'll uncomment several rows, right? And you can comment and uncomment by just toggling between holding down Control and the slash. What this is going to do is going to have a couple of import statements. It's going to have our path here. I'm not really going to worry too much about any of these things, but it should be somewhat familiar. This is just Python. This is written in Python. It has some things that are giving us a little note. It says, assuming your Django settings file is at this place. You see there's going to be some redundancy a couple of times today. We'll talk about why that is, but it's expecting it at my site settings. And these are just demonstrative names, my site. We're going to follow that same pattern again to keep it clear for everybody. But this will be the name of your project, whatever the name of your project is going to be. And so this file right here is something that you could put, again, I think Aurelius, you were asking if you could do this in other places. If you take this file and you put it somewhere else, then you can deploy on that in that place. All right, so the other thing we gotta do is we're gonna have to comment out this pure WSGI stuff, this pure WSGI. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna select the whole thing and then Control slash to comment it out. That way it will not run when we go to the site, and the Django stuff will run. Right, so this is a key part of the setup and make sure the Django is set up properly. And this is something that would have just been done automatically if you picked Django as a framework. It would just like default to this WSGI with nothing else in it. So I wanted to have this up to show you. Aurelius, what's the question?
What was that last step again?
Last step? Okay, the all this WSGI stuff on rows 19 to 47, highlight all that and comment it out. Alex, what's the question?
Yeah, so when I open the var/www file, I don't have the hello world stuff. I only have the Django part.
Just Django by itself?
Yeah.
So that
Is that
sounds
okay?
like it sounds like when you were doing the setup, you picked Django as the framework instead of manual configuration.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, see, and that's what it'll just when you do that, it'll just give you this, right? And I just want to
Yeah.
go through the steps again. That's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. That's fine. It's just I wanted to go through the steps, and I want everyone else to kind of understand a little bit of, for again, training purposes, that this is the place where you would change those things, make those changes, deploy it to a place, and go through the steps of adjusting the file. But yeah, if you just pick the Django out of that thing, then it would shortcut this.
All right.
But the main thing is if you have this piece of code in a WSGI file at this location, then you'll be good to go, right? So you need these import statements, you need this path, you need this little section with the if path not situation, tell it which settings, all these things. As long as you got that, you're good, right? All right, everybody with that so far?
I have a question.
Sure.
For where we did our name, I took it literally and I put VMV underscore then the name.
I
was supposed to replace VMV.
This right here? When you did this call?
Yes.
Okay. So as long as you do this part in the beginning, the Python 3 space -m space VMV, then it doesn't really matter what you make this part. That's okay. It'll work. It'll just be called whatever you call it, which is fine. Just remember what you call it, and you'll see it in there, right? So again, now we go back to our bash console, and we'll check up on this and see what it did. So if you did that part and you named this something other than VM, that's cool. But right now, when I do ls, I'm going to see that we have this directory in here that is whatever name I gave it up here, right? So if you gave it some other name, you should have a directory in your home directory where it exists. And now what we need to do is we need to get into that environment somehow. We have to activate, as it's called, that environment. So I'm going to clear this up. I'm going to activate my environment. And to do that, we're going to use the command source lowercase source, space, and then I'm going to tell it what file we want, or what thing we want to use. It's a file that we want to use as a source. So I'm going to reference that directory that we just made, our VM, or whatever you named it, the virtual environment directory. I'm using tab completion to make sure I know that I'm using the right thing, right? So I typed in V, then tab, and it takes me to the end of it. And then I'm going to do bin, and then activate. So really all you need to do is type the letter B, tab, then A, tab. So you be the name of your virtual environment, bin, activate. And when I hit enter, you'll see over here on the left-hand side, the name of my virtual environment popped up in parentheses. And that's how I know I'm inside my virtual environment. Another way I can check, I'm going to do that pip list command. When I do, it should just be a couple of things. It should just have pip and setup tools, and that's it. So that huge, nasty list of stuff, I've just got these two things. That's it. So now I'm inside my virtual environment. If I wanted to leave my virtual environment for whatever reason, to get out of here, you do what's called deactivate. Just by itself, no other, words, lowercase, deactivate. And as you can see, my console goes back to normal. This little thing disappears off the left. And now I just have the tilde, $, and the UTC time. Right. So once again, from here, and this is the thing that we're going to do at the beginning of pretty much every day. And every time you start coding, you should make sure that you're in the right environment, right? Because this will really mess you up when you start doing like complex projects, got a bunch of different packages and things like that. You want to make sure you activate your virtual environment. So I'm going to activate it again, go through that process again. So you source, bin, source name of your virtual environment, bin, activate. And then we are in there. All right. So any questions about that? No? All right. The first thing we're going to do is we need to now put in our actual Django package into this environment, right? So we're going to pip install. And if you did this on, sorry, let me actually spell this properly. If you did this already, going through the documentation, or if you're following the documentation, there's another package that's installed at the same time. You're welcome to do that. I'm going to leave it out for demonstrative purposes to kind of break this later and see how it goes. But you can install multiple packages with one pip command. So if you know you have a bunch of them, you can do that too. I'm just going to do Django for now. So when you do pip capital D on Django, so pip all lowercase space install all lowercase space name of the package you want to do. More packages if you want to do multiple. I'm going to go through this. Now this might take a little while. Hopefully not. If it does take a while, then we can go poke around. We've already updated our WSGI file or WSGI file, so there's nothing to do there. But we can go here on our web app while Django loads, and we can update one of the settings. We scroll down. Sorry, we're on our web app again, consoles, next to files, web app. And we can put the path to our virtual environment here in virtual env. Now that we've created it, when it says enter a path to your virtual environment if desired, we do want that to happen. That's what's desired. So we want that to make sure that's happened. So up here where it says working directory, it should have your home directory all written out. So you can just copy that if you like. And then click on that enter directory here. So it's going to be /home/ your username / and then just the name of the virtual environment that you use. So in my case, it was VM, but it could be whatever you like, whatever you set it as.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Wait, it should be there, or do we have to add it?
No, you click on that. So there's a little button, that little link down here to add this in here. So there shouldn't be any, you have to add all of this in here yourself.
No, I mean the virtual environment part, like the VEN. Did you add that, or was that all when you copy and pasted, it was already there?
No, I added this part. Yeah, this VM part.
Oh, okay,
I copied and pasted just, yeah. You just add the name of your VM here at the end. So it should be your /home/ username / name of your virtual environment in the virtual env setting when you hit save. Alex, you got a question?
Yeah, for the source code, somehow I have my source code. It says home / my username / my site. I didn't create, I mean, it was like automatically made it.
It was automatically there already?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably because you hit the Django like framework thing and it filled in a lot of these steps for you automatically. That's what I'm guessing.
I gotta change it.
No, you can leave it. We're gonna get to that in a second, but
Okay.
that's cool. Yeah, yeah. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's good though. Yeah. No. Any other questions? All right. So we set up our virtual environment path here in our web app, and now we go back to the Bash console and see if it's installed. See if it finished. It has. We can tell if we got a control back. We can hit clear, and we can get rolling. All right. So now that we have Django installed, we have Django as a package. We can verify that by doing pip list. And it should say there we got Django, but we also, as you may notice, have a whole bunch of other things. We only had 2 packages before. We had pip and setup tools. Now we've got like what, 6? We got this SQL parse, typing extensions. This is another reason why virtual environments are so important, because if you know, you're like, hey, I know I need to use Django, but Django needs to use all these other packages. And again, if you remember that huge list of packages we just had in the system, if you happen to have like SQL parse, but a different version of it, it could conflict and break and not work. Right. So this is why virtual environments are an important thing to do. But I want to make sure that we're all clear. It's not something that it's not any real mystical thing. It's just files and directories. Like we have that VN directory. That's all that's happening here. All right. Any questions so far? Everybody clear on this so far?
I hate to say this, but I
Sure.
kind of got stuck at the WSGI configuration of installing the Django
Yeah. Okay.
environment. I
Yeah.
got it installed, but what's the next step of finding it in the WGS configuration again?
In the WSGI configuration?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to make sure that your lines, 76 to 89 are uncommented and clear like this. So then the Django portion is clear.
Yeah.
And then the lines 19 to 47 are
Oh,
commented out.
the stuff we already done.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
That's all good. That should all be good, right? We should be done with our WSGI configurations. Then the only other configuration we did was we added our virtual environment path here on the web tab under virtual env.
Where did I get that at?
And that's just your home. So it's /home/ your username / name of your virtual environment. Because we just put it in our home directory.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So we got Django installed on a virtual environment. We're ready to start our project. And what this framework is going to do is going to give us the ability to just grab a bunch of stuff that's pre-built and use it, right? So we're going to have things, it's going to create some files for us, it's going to create some directories for us, and it's going to do it automatically. So to get this going, we're going to do a command Python 3 again, and we're going to use the M flag, the module flag, just like we did with VM, except this time we're going to do Django. And we're going to do the Django command start. Well, actually, hang on. Before we do this, no, yeah, we have to do this first. I'm sorry. Python, get the order confused. So Python 3 -M Django start project. This is going to make a file for us to look at. All right, now we're going to name our project. So I'm going to name it my site, and I recommend everyone else does as well for this, just keeping it simple. It's going to match the WSGI file we did before. This can be anything technically, but I recommend for just keeping us all on the same page and to avoid confusion later, to call it my site for now, right? This is something that when you set your project, you're going to want to make it a little bit more descriptive, or it's going to change a lot, but this is going to be the root thing that we're going to reference back to a lot. So if you name it something else, you might create problems for yourself later. So I recommend we all call it my site for now. So Python 3 -M or space, I'm sorry, space -M space Django lowercase space start project, all one word, space my site is the command that we're going to run. And it'll give us no feedback that happened. But when I do ls and list what we have a my site directory. So we're going to change directories into the my site directory. You notice in the documentation, I used the 2 ampersands together between the change directories and the creation of my site. That's just a shorthand to do all that in one line, to do 2 commands in one line. It just makes them do one after the other. Yeah, question.
Yeah, so
sorry.
I did type the Python 3 and the Django start project my site.
Mhm.
And then it says command error, my site conflicts with the name of existing Python module, cannot be used as a project name. It says please try another name. Maybe because I got the my site as a.
So when you do ls, do you already have a my site directory in there?
Let me check. Yeah, I do have somehow. I got my site.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's probably because he did the framework thing that did all that stuff for you automatically. And so these steps, this doing it manually here in Python 3 and stuff like that, this is what you could do locally on your own machine, like what Shadiq, what you were asking earlier. Like you just do this on your own thing. If you have Python, you can install Django and you can just do this on your own home computer and just start from there, right? So this is again why we go through the manual phases, is so that we can see the actual non-binded to or non-bound to Python anywhere way of doing it.
Okay.
So then once I change directories into the my site directory, you see that the little tilde thing before the $sign changed. It includes the my site directory name. So now we're in here. And now if I list the contents, I'm going to see I have a manage.py file and another my site directory. Now this is a standard, again, to have the outer project directory and an inner directory named the same thing. Inside of that inner directory, I'm going to list the contents of that. We have a number of files. We have this init.py, which is also a standard in Python to make things modular that allows them to move in between things. It'll make this entire directory a module. Then there's an ASGI file, which does some asynchronous stuff we're not going to worry about. There's another WSGI file in here. Again, this is something that if you want to work off of Python Anywhere, you can have all your configurations in your WSGI file and then just have Python Anywhere refer to it. That's not how we're going to do it. Then we have our settings, which we're going to get into today, and our urls.py file. So the reason the my site here is the same name as the top level my site is this is where your settings file is going to be. This is where your top level URLs file is going to be. This is where your .env file, which we should get to making soon, that's where these things are going to be by standards, right? So if you start changing these names and naming them other things, when you work with other people, if they're Django developers, they're not going to be able to find it. They're not going to know what it's called because this is the standard, is to have this directory named the same thing as your project. So you'll have two my site directories. You'll have a top level project directory, and then you'll have your my site directory that's got your settings.py and a top level urls.py. When we make our to-do list app, it's going to sit inside the top level my site directory alongside this directory. So it'll be my site, and then my site to-do list or whatever the case may be. All right, so before we move any further and go to adjusting our settings, which there are a few things I want to get into before we move on, I wanted to show you what is in the manage.py file. So to do that, I'm going to use the cat command. I'm not sure if we talked about this one. It's short for concatenate. And all it does is take each line out of a file and stick it end to end and put it on standard out. So it's a way of reading a file without changing anything, because you shouldn't change your manage.py file. You can open it up in the GUI. You can poke around and look at it if you really want to. But this way, I'm not going to change anything. But I do want to read it. So starting here, this is the top. This is called a bang statement. It just kind of tells the system what to read, what system to use. And it has Python in this case. So we got a couple of import statements. Here's OS and sys. Again, we've seen those a couple of times. We don't need to worry about that. But it's following that same pattern that we used. We have def main. There's a main function here, which we don't need to get into the details of, but most of this is fairly familiar. There's a try and except block, which we didn't cover. It's a way of doing logic that, again, you could probably figure out just reading it. But if you look down here, there's the entry point that we use, the if underscore double underscore name, double underscore main, and then calling that main function. So this is that thing that I was talking about. What we're going to do throughout our development process is we're going to be calling manage.py. We're going to do Python 3 manage.py and then some command. And so we're going to be running through this entry point, going to this main command, and then doing what this tells us to do, right? So following that same pattern that we built in our Hello World application is what Django is doing. Everybody tracking that? Any questions about this?
I just wait. So I did Python 3 space manage.py and a bunch of stuff came up.
Oh, and you hit enter? Yeah, I was just showing that as a thing. Let's see what stuff came up. Yeah, I was just showing that this is going to be the thing that we're going to use as a starting point. Yeah, so this is what's telling you, like, hey, cool. I need another command though. It's like, great. These are the ones that you can use, right? So this is a good way to, so if you don't know what you can do with manage.py, that's a way to get to it. So I love that you did that. You just try it out. Do that. You can't really hurt anything, right? So this gives you a list of commands. So there's things about, Django itself. We're going to be running through a bunch of these. Not all of them, obviously, but some of these we're going to use. And this is basically what it does. Like all of these things are functions or classes or something, mostly functions that are written somewhere in a file someplace that you can go track down if you really care to find out, right? The way that we're going to access it is with that same construction of the Python 3 and then the name of the Py file. And then we're just going to pick one of these things. Like we just, we did start project. That's another thing we do. We could have done, if we'd have managed.py, we could have done it through here, but we didn't have one yet. So that's cool. I'm glad you did that, Shtigo. Any other questions or comments or anything else before we move on? All right. So let's go into our settings file, and I'm gonna do this through the GUI because I want to make sure that we don't get lost. It's something you could do in V if you wanted to, but I'm gonna open up my files tab and we're gonna navigate over to it, our settings.py file, and do some changes. And I'm gonna switch up the order. I'm not gonna follow the order exactly of the documentation. So if you're following along with the documentation, I might do a little bit out of order on this. I'm gonna explain why here in a second. But just so we know where we're at, right? So we're at our root directory, our home directory. We got home username. Down here's our my site directory that we made. And then we have our manage.py file under files. And we have our my site, our inner my site directory here, where we expect to find our settings.py file right there. We're gonna open that bad boy up in our code or our text editor. So this is what comes with every Django project when you start it, and it comes exactly this way. And there are a few things that should be done to get started. Some you absolutely have to do to get started, or else it's not going to work. And some things are just best practice. So we're going to be in here a few times doing some things. I'm going to start with the things that have to be done, and then we'll go into the best practice, covering up the secret key thing that's more secure. Right? So I'm gonna scroll down a little bit. We're not going to go every line of this. There's some links to documentation, which is great. There's a lot of cool stuff in the Django documentation. They have pretty good docs. This base dir is very good to kind of understand what's being built here. We're going to reference it a lot, but don't worry about it right now. I'm going to scroll down to line 28, where it says allowed hosts. And there's a list, an empty list. This is the first thing I'm going to change. Again, I'm not following exactly the documentation. The documentation does some stuff with the secret key first. I'm leaving that for next. This is going to make it work. We need to update our allowed hosts first, right? Well, not first, but we have to do this part. The secret key thing we can skip. So in this allowed hosts is where we're going to put domain names that we can use, right? Now, one real common thing if you're doing this locally on your own machine is to just put in, these are entered as strings in this list, is to put in an asterisk. And that means everything is allowed. You don't want to do that, obviously, in like a production environment, right? Now, while this up here on line 26, this debug is set to true. It's not meant for production. So this is for development stuff. When this says true here, it's going to spit out a lot more information that a hacker could use. I think, Shadiq, where you're asking about how this course might be relevant to cybersecurity, this whole section that we're talking about here is going to be kind of relevant to like where people look for exploitation and how they can infiltrate systems and those sorts of things. Debugging information is one of those places, right? So making sure that you set this to false when you go live, but it will be set to true by default for development purposes and spits out a ton of information, right? Allowed host, similarly, when you're on your own machine and you're just doing it locally, this is fine to do allowed host, but it's a terrible idea normally. You don't want to do it anywhere else. And for us here, it's not the way we want to go because we are live on the internet. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in our domain. And who remembers what the domain is? When we started our app, we picked our domain and we talked about it a little bit. What is our domain? Your stunned silence is very reassuring.
The username.
Yep, username. That's part of it. Then what?
Python anywhere.
There it is. It's right here. This is our domain. Very good. Pythonanywhere.com. So this is, again, the domain is the think of like the base part of our URL on our actual website, right? So this is when it was this Hello World app. I haven't refreshed this yet. We've changed this, so it's not going to work if I refresh it now. But again, this is our domain. So when we go on our website in the real world, on the real internet, that's where we're going. The root of
I'm
the domain.
sorry, I got sidetracked because I didn't realize how you got to this.
Settings?
Yeah, I mean, you went through, oh, here it is right here. Wait, hold up. Let me make sure this is right. Okay, never mind. Got
With
it.
me? With me? Okay.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take this domain, so our username.pythonanywhere.com. I'm just going to copy it straight from here, just straight from the web tab. I'm just going to highlight that and copy it and just paste it as a string into my allowed hosts. So it's in quotation marks and it's inside the square brackets. So it's inside this allowed host list. Aurelius, you got a question?
It doesn't need the asterisks.
No, I'm doing this in place of the asterisk. So the
Okay.
asterisk is, it means everything. Generally in Python and in a lot of places. So it means absolutely everything. And so that's something that you could get away with putting in your allowed hosts for like local development, but it's not a good thing to do anywhere else. And since we're live on the internet, I don't want you guys to do that either.
Okay.
And this is a much better way to do it. That way it's just your domain that goes to it.
And does it need those quotation marks?
Yes, it must be a string. Any other questions? Okay, so if we save this, just that one setting, we didn't change anything else. We just put in as a string our username or your username .pythonanywhere.com into the allowed host list. Then it should, hopefully, if we go back to our web tab and we reload our server-side code. Oh, wait, no. It won't work because we didn't adjust this setting. 1 second. Okay, cool. That's done reloading. All right. So before we expect anything to actually work, we need to make sure that our code section here points to our source code. So this big red part right here says enter the path to your web app source code. Now, again, if you didn't do manual configuration and you chose Django as a step, this will already be filled in. But for everybody else that didn't do that and did manual configuration with me, you're going to just have the working directory that has /home/username/ and then nothing, and you're gonna have this enter the path to your web app source code. So we need to adjust both of these, the source code and the working directory. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to use it in my source code directory, but I'm also going to add the name of the project. Again, if you recall, it's my site is the name that we called this, right? So we did that, the generic name, and we're also going to append my site to the back of the working directory. So we have our source code directory, we have our working directory, should both be /home/username/my site. We should have our virtual environment directory under our virtual env section. And in settings, we should have our domain name in the allowed hosts. All right, now, hopefully, I haven't skipped any majorly important steps. We'll reload our server-side code. And we'll see if our site has changed. Cool. So if you've done this along with me, you should have, when you go back here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I'm zoomed in to make it clear. We don't need to do that. When you navigate to your site, you should see this little rocket flying that says install work successfully. Congratulations. You got Django up and running. And then there's documentation link, tutorials, community link. This is really the place that we needed to get tonight. This is the absolute spot we wanted to go. The things about hiding our environment variable, I want to walk through that since we've got time, but I want to make sure that we can all get to this as a minimum. And the documentation has hiding the environment variable before getting to this part. So I want to make sure that we're clear on this getting to here. Questions?
I'm still
hold on.
getting just hello world.
You're still getting this hello world?
Same.
Okay. So check in your WSGI files that you commented out all of the hello world stuff. This has to be completely taken out, and that this Django stuff is available.
Wait, when you say taken out, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's taken out.
Because I thought I followed what you said by highlighting it and then doing the.
It should either have you can erase it if you wanted to. You just completely erase it, and then it's gone.
Okay.
But we don't need it at all. And that might do it too. But if you're still seeing hello world stuff, that means that some of this is getting out there.
And
Alex,
and it's 19 to 30 what now? Or
47.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
How do you navigate to the website?
So you go on your web tab, it'll have a link right here. The name that you have, your domain name, is just a hyperlink, and you can, I just open it up in a new tab.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Cool. Aurelius, you got a question still?
Yeah, mine is commented out all the hello world, but when I refresh the domain,
Mhm.
never
Did you
mind.
reload the website or the web,
Yeah,
just the
I
web
I
page?
I think it said it's the install worked successful. Congratulations. I got it.
Perfect.
Okay, never mind.
Perfect. All right, cool. So we got a little over 15 minutes, and I do want to go through that hiding the virtual environment step, because that's a really important thing to understand, be able to do, and it's very common even outside of Django to have a .env file that has environment variables inside of it. So if more or less folks have gotten to that point of the install working, and it sounds like we have, anybody have any questions up to that before we go into the next little piece?
I'm still
You'll
not
see the
getting it.
hello world.
What's that?
Go
Gloria,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just saying I still get the hello world and I took it all out.
Did you reload your web, just on the server side on the web app, and make sure that you updated? Because if you don't update the server side, it won't, any changes you make won't reflect on the web page. And then you have to refresh your web page as well. Try to run it through those. And if it still doesn't work, and that should equal you stuck too. And it's still saying hello world for you as well.
Yep,
Okay. So same things. It's, you got to make sure that the WSGI file,
I did all that.
and then reload it
Yep,
on the web page, and then refresh it on this side.
yep. And can you
Me.
do me a favor? Can you scroll down? I mean, because I need to make sure that I got, yeah, I did that to the
You got
my
these
site,
two?
all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I
Me.
reloaded and it says something went wrong with the sad face.
Uh-oh. Okay. Okay. All right. So the place that you could figure out, it'll say on there, there'll be a link to this error log. And I could go there too. And if you want to hang out, we can do like you share your screen and we look at it. You got
It
something else?
helps.
Yeah, go ahead.
It helps. I had to save my the pages for the settings and for the our actual page that we had to block out all the hello world things. I had to save those just to make sure that
Make
it
sure you save them. Yeah. Make sure you
yeah.
save them first. Make sure you save these files when you change you make, then reload
Mm.
on the server side, then refresh your browser. You got to do
And
those
that
steps in that order. Yeah. Yeah. Because it sounds like there's some disconnect there between that file and this. But Gloria, were you able to find your logs, your error logs?
Yes.
Do you see what it does that help you out, or do you need me to give you a hand looking at those?
Um, it's moving kind of slow here, so go
Okay.
ahead and
Okay. I was gonna say we can hang out if you're totally jammed up. We can hang out after, and we'll try to rock through this last little bit in the last 15 minutes and
I
get this
got
other
it.
part
It
time.
says error running WSGI application.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it could be something in your actual WSGI file. Just go in there and make sure that you didn't like add an extra character, or you maybe skipped a line that was supposed to be uncommented or something like that. And make sure that you got the right lines added or taken out. All right, so let's press on to moving this out. The last few steps that were in the documentation of moving out this secret key into a .env file, and go through the mechanics of that to understand how that works. Get used to doing it, and see if hopefully we can not break everything when we do. All right, so the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to import, from a package, this environ package. We're going to import env. Now we've done this before, the statements, the from and the package name, we're going to import, and then a class name. So it's capital env is the class that we're going to use. Then we're going to scroll down a little bit closer to row 23. The thing that we're going to change is on row 25 or line 25. So I'm going to go above that and start doing some use of this env class that we import up here. So the first thing we do with, What's that?
And do you use env or do you use your actual name that you changed it to if you changed it?
No, this is a class that I'm coming from this package. It's called env, so we got to call it that. So we're calling, this is, again, it's a class definition that's written in somebody's file somewhere in this environment package. So we got to call it env. Good question, because we're going to use env a couple of times, and it does get confusing and redundant. So again, here's another time. We're going to name our variable by convention, lowercase env. Again, this is just a really common way to do it. And we're going to instantiate our class, sorry, which as you recall, if you recall, is the name of the class with open and closed parentheses, right? So we're going to, in an environment, env, short for environment, named variable, we're going to instantiate our env class that we imported from environment. And now that we have, just like we did with our car class, now that we have that env class instantiated, we could do things with it. And it has a method built into it called read env, environment, again, short for environment. And this is going to have open and closed parentheses because it's a method, right? And it's going to expect a keyword argument of a file, env file, so env underscore file, and then we'll tell it is a string, and we'll give it a path to that file, right? So this construction here is all really, really common, to have an environment variable sort of thing that reads a file from your environment that's going to have all of your secret stuff that you don't want anybody to see. So we're going to tell it that it's going to be in our mysite /.env. Now this also is a convention. So this mysite is our inner mysite directory. So there's the mysite top directory. This is the same directory where our settings.py file is. So right up here at the top where it says home /username /mysite /settings.py right up here. It's going to be in that same directory right next to the settings.py file where our env file is going to be. We don't have it yet, but that's where it's going to be. So we give it as a string, mysite /env. And we're going to give it as this value right here. So since we're doing, development really, and it's not actually something that needs to be hyper secure, it's okay. We can just use this one. So I'm just going to control X just to copy that out and put it in my clipboard, and I'll paste into the env file when we make it. But I'm going to replace this value so it doesn't break. And so now that I have our file read into our actual thing, we can access the elements in that file, right? So the way we do that is we just give it the name that we're going to use. And by convention, we use Django secret key. And we call it Django as opposed to just a secret key because you might have a whole bunch of other secret keys in this environment file. You want to make sure that this is the one that you're using for Django, right? So Django secret key. So the way we do this is env, and then in parentheses, the name as a string of the variable that you're going to want to use.
Jeff?
Yep.
My secret key line is above all of it. It's on number 23. Does that matter?
Nah, makes no difference.
Okay. And you deleted out what was there and you replaced it with that.
I copied it out. So I have it in my clip. Like I control X. So I'm going to put it someplace else and I'm going to use that same key, but you could use any long string of random characters. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, I'm going to use that again. I'm going to use it here in a second. I realize what's the question.
Does it need to be full caps?
Good question. So it should be, again, by convention. So this is just kind of showing humans that it's to be treated as a constant, even though there are no constants in Python. It's really a variable that can be changed. We just think of it as something that is unchanging. And so we signify that with all caps. But yeah, so computers don't care, but humans do. All right. Any other questions about this little piece before we move on? So we imported, we instantiated, we read in our file by giving it the path, and then we set the actual variable that we want to use by referencing it. So now we need to go fill in that character, right? So or fill in that variable. Any questions before we hop over and do that? Cool. All right, so I'm going to save this. I think I already did, but I'm just going to double check. And we are going to move over into, I'll just do this here, even though, again, this is something I would normally probably do just all through the console and use V and just quickly hammer it out, but just to make sure that we're in the right places and we're not making these things in the wrong places. We'll go through our GUI. So in the mysite, again, second level mysite directory, so go mysite alongside of our settings.py. So we should see a settings.py file right here. I'm going to make a new file under where it says files, this input box. I'm going to do .env, right? And the dot means it is hidden. Whoa, not caps, lowercase. And that also is by convention, this .env. You might have reasons to make other files, but this is like the standard. And this is, again, used outside of Django. It's really, 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 really common to use a .env file somewhere to hold your environment variables. So I hit new file. It'll think about it, and it'll take me right here. And this is going to be a plain text file. So there's no crazy syntax or anything that we really got to keep track of. We're just going to put in directly our variables, just their name, and then set them to what we want them to be. And again, I copied this one from before. And there it is. So I'm just going to paste this in. Again, demonstrative purposes, this is in a development sort of environment. I'm not that worried about keeping it secure. Normally, you would not use this one that says insecure in it. Obviously, it's not a secure thing, but you just really want to have just a random long string of characters in here. All right, I'm going to save that, and that's it. So that is our environment variable set up in our .env file. And we have our reference to it here in settings. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to save everything, go back to my web tab, and I'll reload it. I'm just going to work on it for a second. Remember, we had our install working before. So hopefully all this refactoring did was not break anything. Oh, womp womp. It broke something. Oh, yeah, see, Gloria's over there happy, like, oh man, I told you. But let's see what happened. All right, so we go to the error logs. I'm going to scroll down because this is a whole bunch of stuff. This is, kind of all the error logs going back to like July, right? So this is kind of our last class's error logs. I'm going to scroll down to what just happened. Let's see. Is this what just happened? This is not just what happened. What's going on here? Let's see. Let's see if these error logs are more relevant. So I don't want to ruin the surprise. There we go. Okay. So all the way down at the end, I'm not going to ruin the surprise. So here's the very end of our file, right? So this is, you look over here at the very left-hand side. It says our time and date stamp, so we know this is right. This is now, yeah. Yeah, that's now. We'll call that now. Because UTC time, right? So it's the 18th. But this is what's called a traceback. And if we start at the bottom of this and go up, it's kind of going backwards through the way that this was read by the computer in that sequential control structure and where it went wrong. This is going to tell us each line that it went wrong, each file that it went wrong in, and all the references. So when something breaks in your code, this is going to be where you want to go. So this is a file. It says all these things are setting.py file, right? There's a full list to it. It says line 14. And then it says from environ import env. So if we go to our settings.py, line 14, that is indeed what's on line 14. So that is the source of the problem. Knowing that, without going any further up in our stack trace, anybody know how to fix this problem? What do we do wrong? What do we miss? What's the issue? Relis.
I don't have that error.
Uh-oh. Yeah, see, if you followed, this kind of a spoiler alert. If you followed the documentation, and I called this out before too, if you follow the documentation, you probably won't have this error.
No, I have a different error.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I followed along because the
Yeah.
website didn't work, and so went to the error log, and my bottom line
Yeah.
doesn't say that.
It says something else.
Yeah.
Okay. We could talk about that one, and I could help you debug yours.
Mm.
Let's debug this one together real quick. Because this one, again, kind of spoiler alert, I set this one up. I know what's wrong here. So I know what the error is. But I want y'all to try to figure out, again, because as you're seeing, you have your own error logs to go through. So I want you to kind of go through these in a structured way and get used to doing that. This is what debugging really is. So this right here, and again, if you're totally stuck at the end of class here in a few minutes, I can look at it with you and see if I can get you unstuck. But let's try to get this one unstuck together. All right. Anybody have an idea of what this might be telling us? This from environ import env thing.
There's no environment in environment or environment I run.
Yep. All right. So then how do we fix it? How do we fix the problem?
You gotta put it in
Google
there.
it? I don't know.
Do you have to go to the no, not the WSGI.
No, not WSGI.
Something wrong with the ENV, Aaron.
Right.
But
Okay.
you have to, it says you have
Maybe
to
you
import.
No,
misspelled it?
no, it's a good question. It's a good guess. It's not misspelled. That would give a similar error. It might be, but those are all spelled right. So right up here, and this is where that I'm highlighting, it says module not found error, no module named environment. So what does that mean? No module. Where does it look for modules? It looks for modules and packages in our virtual environments. So this error is telling us that we didn't install this package in our virtual environment. So if we go back here, oh, I'm still yelling in all caps. Let's do that. So I go back to my bash console and my virtual environment is activated. And if I list the packages that I have in there, I do not have an environment package. So it's not listed here. Right? So you see ASCII ref, Django, pip, setup tools, right? There's no environment. So to fix this, we have to actually install that package. So back, do pip install. And it's a special package. Again, it's written in the documentation, but it's Django Environ. So it's a special version of Environ that's made just for Django. And this should just take a second to install. Hopefully, now that we've done that, we shouldn't have to do anything else. Hopefully. But just out of habit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload source code before I check the website and see if it works. And there we go. So the install worked successfully. Congratulations. We're back to this point. So what we have is our secret key has been hidden in a .env file that is in our my site, our inner my site directory at the same place. See, it's right here, same place as our settings.py file. And again, that is a standard location to put environment variable file, or yeah, files with environment variables inside of them. Aurelius, question.
Does the secret key has to be dot environment or can it just be environment?
It should be .env. Good
That's
question.
probably where I messed
Yeah.
up at. Okay.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, it should be .env.
Can you stop there for a second? Because, oh, go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask if he could go back to the console to show how you added the env.
That's what I was gonna ask. Well, no, not that.
Oh, to add to the list of install packages?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just ran pip install Django environ. So pip lowercase space install lowercase space Django also lowercase dash environ all connected hyphenated. And then you can see that it's in there now by listing. And then we have Django environ listed. All right. Any other questions?
Can you, I don't, like, I got stuck here or lost here. I don't know
Sure.
where you added the env file because mine is not saying my site. My site is just saying my site env. Like, I don't
Okay.
know.
So like you're up on this one where you're next to you. Do you have a manage.py file next to you? Because if you do, you're at the top level my site and you need to go down one level. So you need to go to the my site again directory. To get to, you should be in the same place where your settings.py file is. It should be right alongside your settings.py. So like go like you're going to your settings.py, but just don't open settings and just put in the .env part up here. Because it should be sitting right next to that. Alex, what's the question?
I did make a .env file inside my site, and then I tried to reload the web page. It says something went wrong, and I did check the error log. It says not found /webicon.ico.
Oh,
It's a What
No,
is that
that's
error?
yeah, don't worry about that. So that's not the error that's breaking it. See if I have any of my error logs open anymore. So we have, yeah, this that's like on websites, see like on the Python Anywhere website, this little Python symbol thing up here.
Mm,
That's what that is, that fave icon thing. And you're always going to see that in your logs that it can't find that. So that's not what's breaking your site. Definitely. You're going to be looking for
oh.
something
So
like
set
this.
the Django secret key environment variable.
Mm-hmm.
I think I messed up. The
Yeah.
.env file.
Check your settings.py file and make sure that you're referencing it properly. That's usually what that means. Is usually that either this reference in the secret key is wrong and it's not finding that. So that's what that sounds like.
The Django secret key.
But we are right at time. So anybody wants to hang out, we can debug and dig through your specific ones. Anybody able to get to that point with the thing hidden? Did we break everything for anybody that had the install working by trying to hide the thing? Yeah, really?
I like to stay over and try to debug mine.
Cool. You're absolutely welcome to.
Yeah, can I stay longer too?
Sure. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And
I
everyone
still
else,
don't even know how to
yeah,
get to, I don't even know how to add the ENV thing. I'm still, I can't find it. I
you
don't
can't
know.
find the
If
file.
I'm
Where'd it
missing
go?
files. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. We can keep going. So the Shadiqua, maybe we can do yours real quick. Anybody that doesn't want to hang out and try to keep debugging is obviously welcome to take off. And I'm gonna keep
I'm
the
gonna
recording
say,
going.
Shaniqua,
Yeah.
I think you went so fast that it scrolled up and couldn't type it in.
Okay. So this is where you want your MyEnv or your .env file to be, Shadiqua. At the
I know. I don't know how to get there is what I'm saying. I don't know how to get there.
how to
I
get
feel
there.
like
Okay. Yeah. So if you go just start at the top at files and then go to my site and then down one more time into the inner my site directory. So like you're in my site once, then you do my site again under directories. And then you should be at the same place as your settings.py. So if you see your settings.py and then a URLs and an ASCII and a WSGI and a double underscore init,
mhm,
you see all those
We had
files? That's where you should
mhm.
be.
we had to create that file.
Yeah, and you have
So
to make your DENV file here. So when you
I
go to,
know. I just
yeah,
didn't know where to make it.
yeah. So like
um,
once you see the settings file right up here where it says files above it, that's where you make it. So if you're
Okay.
next,
And I also have an error message on that page where we had to put the secret key, like
mhm, the settings file,
and maybe it's yeah,
sure.
like I have an error message next to my secret key and it says undefined name.
All right.
And yeah, it looks like I put it in the exact same way, but it's still saying undefined name.
You want to try sharing your screen so we can see what you're talking about?
Oh, you have, oh yeah, okay.
There you go.
Mhm.
I'm assuming it's something in the spelling of the variable name, but let's have a look
I
before I
don't
start
need to
shooting in
see
the
that.
dark.
Do you see it?
Yes.
It's
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Yeah. I see. I
So
see.
right
I
here.
see what the issue is for sure. Yeah. So, um, when you call that, all right. Yeah. A couple of things. So first of all, remember the sequential control structure means that it reads top to bottom, left to right. So anytime you create something, the order on the page that you make it in makes a difference. So
And
you
that's
see,
why I asked you, my secret key was not on the right line, and you
so
said that's fine.
it's only if it's right or wrong relative to things. There's no absolute number 23 that's right or wrong, right? So the only thing that makes this wrong is that the ENV call on line 24 has to come before you use ENV. And so you use env on line 23, but you create it on line 24. So it's like it's not created yet on line 23. And so the computer doesn't know what to do. It's like, this doesn't exist. I don't know what env is because you didn't create it yet to line 24. So you just have to move that, all of that line 24 and 25 above line 23, or the other way around, what's on 23 down to line 26 maybe, and basically just invert that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So the env equals, and the capital env parentheses on line 24 should be the very first thing you call.
Bye. Have a good night. I'll rewatch the video.
You sure? No, you're good. You're totally good. This is totally good. It's just the orders that you're in. Don't worry about it.
No, I'll rewatch the video. I don't want to take up other people's time.
No, it's totally fun. This is what we're here for. And then there's one other thing again. So like, just once you reorder those things, on line 24, where it says env, no space before the parentheses. Just take that space out. You have a space between env and your open parentheses on line 24
They
now.
have undo. Can I undo?
Yeah. Control Z. Control Z.
Okay,
it should undo it. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the only two things that I see wrong. It's just the order that you call those things in. So you got to just move your 23 to 26 or something. Or move those up.
Can I just do this?
X and paste. Yep. There you go. So that should solve that problem. And then in line 25, wait real quick. Line 25 now, take out that space between env and the open parentheses. Boom. All right. Save that. And then go refresh or reload on your web tab. Reload on the server side code and see if that solves the problem. No. On
but I didn't do any of the other stuff, like
making the M file.
No, I did that, but I had to. Oh, I got to go and do the secret key thing over there, right? And I got to do that first.
Okay.
I do have to do that first, right?
Yeah, you have to make the secret key. Yeah, the Django secret key.
In the right, okay. Let me do that.
Sure. All right, Alex, Aurelius, did you guys either you have a question? Or are you stuck somewhere?
Yeah. Can I see your WSGI file?
Oh, man. Now you're getting personal. Of course. Hold on 1 second.
I think my file is something. It says the WSGI file is something wrong with my file.
So sometimes it says that, like in the error logs, it'll say like error running WSGI application. And that doesn't mean that the problem is here in this file. But the things that we definitely changed were up here. We commented all this stuff out if you had all this stuff. And then we uncommented the Django stuff. So this is the important pieces, that you have these things the way that they are here. But all this should have been by default, so we didn't really make any changes in here either, except for uncommenting things and commenting stuff.
Right. I mean, I don't think I even touched this, but
so yeah. So you want to share your screen? We can look at your error log and see what it says, or do you want me? I can just open up your error log from here if you tell me your username.
Yeah. Can you just open up?
Yeah, sure. What's your username? Where are you?
Myungsub. Yeah, MYUNG.
Oh yeah, Myungsub. Right? Yeah. Cool. So I'm going to go to your web tab. First of all, I'm going to see if it breaks for me the way it does for you. Yep, something went wrong. But see, it's not giving me the links to your logs because I'm not actually you. But I can still get to your error logs here. All right. So right here it says improperly configured core exception, improperly configured Django secret key, environment variable. See if that's the most recent problem. Yeah.
I got the exact same error.
Exact same error? Okay, cool. So let's check out where this is. So where do we set the Django secret key environment variable? Hey, this could be a couple of different things. All right, so let's see if we can figure this out. First thing first, what do you all think? I'm gonna open this. Hold on. I got way too many tabs open. Let me clean this up so we can make this somewhat reasonable. And we know we're looking at just your stuff, right? So we are on yours. Let's open your error logs up in another tab. All right. So the same, and again, especially for relatives, if you're having the same issue, what do we think the solve for this could be? We know that we're running into this Django secret key environment variable situation, and we know that we just tried to like move into another file. Where's the first place that you think we should look to try to fix this?
The WSGI
WSGI.
file.
Okay. Okay. You both think WSGI. Why do you think that would be the place to go?
That's the lines that they're calling out.
I'm sorry?
That's like the line call out. I'm only imagining that's where that line is because my other
Oh,
ones don't have that many lines.
I get you. I get you. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So here's a little bit deductive reasoning with that one, not really a solid answer.
Yeah, no, I get you. That makes sense because it does say right here that, that it's like the first
Mm-hmm.
thing went wrong is the last line of the WSGI file, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this just kind of is saying that that's where it at some point ran into the problem. The real problem was kind of rooted down here. We got secret key, Django secret key, right? So this is where we use it. And this is where the first problem was. So this is kind of deep into things, right? So this is like down in Python. So this is just telling us basically this environment variable didn't come through. So it doesn't have this value secret key. So something is disconnected between the value that we set and where we're calling it. So somewhere between our .env file and our settings.py file. That's where the issue is. It's not in the WSGI application itself or the WSGI file. So you shouldn't have to do anything in the WSGI file once we adjusted those comments. It's rarely there that the problem is.
Mm.
So let's look over at where those could be. I think we're just gonna open our files. We're not gonna go through all your stuff. Don't worry, man. We go my site. Then we got my site here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we expect we have your .env and you got your settings. So I'm gonna open these up. Just have a look at what these are. I'm assuming the issue is probably gonna be in your settings file because .env, there's not a lot to do there. There shouldn't be anything there. I don't think these spaces make a difference, but they might. This might actually be the issue. But let's check your settings first and see if there's something going on in here. All right, so you got your import. Everything's spelled right there. You got your instantiation. That looks all good. You've got the read, your end file. You got your path to it. That's where it should be. That's where it was. And you got your call your Django secret key. And these spaces definitely shouldn't be making a difference. So nothing looks wrong here. This all looks good here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try this out. That might be. You mind if I make this change? Is that cool?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm gonna take these out. I'm gonna see if that might be the issue. I honestly don't know off the top of my head why. But the other thing we could check is in here. You got those referenced properly. You got that referenced properly. Okay. Yeah. I don't see any no overt reason why these files shouldn't be pointed at the right thing. But that is what your error was telling you, was that it's not looking. And there it was. So it was the spaces. It was stupid spaces in the
Oh my
.env
God.
file. I know, it's so ridiculous. And that's what debugging is about, man. It's such a ridiculous pain where
But
you're
like it's yeah. That's
yeah. We're like
usually when
some
you set up the variable,
yeah.
don't you usually make a space in between the equal sign because it's more
So
readable?
yeah. Sometimes you do, and then sometimes it all of a sudden matters, right? So that's kind of it's I don't know what to tell you. In this plain text thing, it makes a difference. So there you go.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. No worries. No worries. Aurelia, so that's all for you two men. Did you follow along and see if that was your problem too by any chance?
Yep, that's a weird little thing to worry
What
about,
did
that the spaces.
that solve it for you too?
Yeah, I
Oh
guess it's
man.
taking a space and as actual string itself.
Yeah, so it kind of takes the whole thing, right? Like it's a plain text file in the
Mhm.
.env, and when it pulls in, it's just taking like that whole chunk, and so it's probably just stopping at the first space.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Wait, yeah, that fits it. So now I got the install work successful. The install
nice,
work successful. Congratulations. Yeah.
nice, excellent.
All right, caught up.
All right. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
Yeah, for sure. Shadiqua, are you still
I
stuck?
so I did all of that, but I think I'm down to the last few steps that I missed. The
Sure.
where you went to the bash console.
Yeah.
Because after you do all of the creating the environment file and doing the secret key and all of that,
Mhm.
I saved all of that and then I refreshed. And then did you do the pip install Django with, I don't know.
Yeah, so I installed the Django environment package because I skipped that step from the documentation earlier, like
Okay.
to break it on purpose so we had something to debug together to make sure there was
Oh,
something wrong.
okay.
But if you install Django and Django environment all in one shot, you don't have to go back. But you just got to make
Okay.
sure both those packages were installed.
So I did go into the bash console and I put the pip install Django environ.
Mm-hmm.
And it says requirement already satisfied in home.
Perfect. Perfect. That means you already
Okay.
got it. Yeah. So, and that's the other thing is like pip is cool that in the sense that it never hurts to try to reinstall something you already got. It'll just say you already got that, and it just doesn't do it.
Okay. And so are there any other steps? Because when I refresh and I do all the things, it says my site is fine.
It says it
So did
works.
I miss something? It says the install works successfully. Congratulations.
So it works. So you're sure there's something that you missed something?
Yeah.
I love it. No, that's exactly where you should be. And
Okay.
if you have that environment variable out in an env file, then that's the full gamut of the steps that we wanted to cover today. So you did it.
Okay. Oh my God. You know what? I'm gonna stick around, but I gotta tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, Thursday, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be here
Okay.
because I have a work thing after work. So
That's unacceptable. This is more. No, that's
well,
cool.
I
That's
probably need to stick around for every single one that I
yeah.
can in
Well,
person.
so anything you miss, obviously definitely watch the video when you can, but don't hesitate to reach out to me. I don't mind sitting down with you and going over stuff again. We'll have documentation for every day from now on until we finish the I think the entire course actually has documentation now. So it'll be a lot easier to follow along with and copy and paste and whatnot. But I'm happy to meet up one-on-one, set up some other time if you miss a class or something like that. Make sure you're caught up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And
Yeah,
thank
for
you
sure.
for your patience.
Yeah,
'Cause
no,
I
thank you for the effort. I
pull my
really
hair out.
appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. Stick to it. That feeling never goes away. You're always going to feel just as dumb. So don't worry about it.
All right. Take care. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Tico. You
Thank
too.
you.
What's up, Aurelius? You got another question, man?
Yeah, real quick, it's my
Sure.
last question of the night, but
Yeah.
looking back into the Bash console, kind of looking at yours, I
Mhm.
did press deactivate, and that just took me out of the virtual environment, but I'm
Yeah.
still in the my site
Yep.
environment. How do I get out of that?
Oh, cool. Yeah. So those two things, again, that's the change directory command is how you
Hmm.
move around, and you're going to adjust that my site part of it, right? So if you could just hit CD with no further arguments, it'll take you back to your home
Oh,
thing.
okay.
And you see, like I'm still in my virtual environment there, and I can change directories down to my root, or I can go, all the way back up to back into the my site thing, and I'm still in my virtual environment because it's like two separate ideas. But change
Gotcha.
directory is the one you want to traverse your different spots.
All right, cool.
Yeah, cool.
That's it for me.
Right on. I really appreciate it, man.
All right,
Laura,
thank
you
you.
got any questions or anything else?
Yeah, I had my error.
Okay.
My site is GLOW 1969.
All right. Let's check this out. All right. I'm going to go to your web tab and I'm going to check out your error logs first. Oh, well, there's a problem right there. I can see a problem already.
And that happened after I deleted the portion 18 of 47.
Okay. So what's happening here is that like you pasted in here twice. So I'm just gonna make this change real quick if you don't mind. I'm just gonna erase part of this because you got too many references to like a redundant array. You see what you did here? You got home and then your username 2 times. So I'm just gonna take one of those out. And that should solve that problem. And then so you don't have your virtual environment path. We might want to add that. Let's look at your error log first. I'm pretty sure that thing I just changed is going to solve your problem. No attribute application. Yeah, this is probably from this error. Let's check your WSGI file too. That's all fine. Ah, yeah, see, here's the issue. So all this stuff here needs to be uncommented. Because what it was saying in this right here where it says has no attribute application, it means it wasn't reading this line, and because it was commented out. So what I did was I uncommented these lines, this 46 to 59 on yours. And that should solve at least part of the problem. I'm also really quickly, while we're here, I'm going to check that you have virtual environment. Looks like you do. What? Okay, there we go. I don't know how to type apparently anymore.
Probably long day.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So and it looks like you got it. Oh, 1 second. PM underscore is the one you're using. All right. So I'm going to add this to your web app down here, just the same path, right? So it's going to be the same home, except we're going to put the VM at the end.
That's the step on this.
Yeah. So 1969. And then the name of the environment that you're using. I'm going to save that. And then I'm also right here in this working directory. I'm going to add my site to this. So make sure that that's got the same reference as this. These two should be the same. Okay, so that should solve your problems, hopefully. Let's see.
Now it says disallowed host.
Ah, okay. Okay. That's cool. So let's see. Hold on, watch. I want to see what's going on here. Nice. Excellent. 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 So disallowed host. So real quick, before we fix that, where do you think you need to go to fix that? And this is cool. It's kind of unfortunate I didn't do this one earlier to show everybody else. We're going to see this later, but this is what happens. We have their debug set to true. This is the debugging information. It's like super thorough information. It's probably more than you could possibly need. But
I didn't add myself as a host.
yes, in your settings.py in the allowed hosts is where I would look. Let's see. My site settings.py. Yep, allowed host right here. So you have to add it.
I remember you saying that I was behind or trying to read.
Okay. Okay. And that's cool. So you remember where you get your domain name from? Here, we don't need this.
Do I remember where I get my domain from?
Yeah.
You asked that earlier.
I did.
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
It's all right. It's on your web tab. It's right here. It's going to be the root of your web URL.
Right.
This is your domain right here. So I'm just going to copy this and put it as a string inside your settings. And now, if I reload, once that's done, there we go. Okay, cool. So now you should have your site working to this point. We didn't do the hiding this in a .env file like it's in the documentation. That's entirely up to you if you want to work on trying to get that part done yourself, and let me know if you get stuck doing that. But you have it built to today's ending point now.
Thank you. And so now when you on a site and you right click and you look at the code, how it's like it's truly not everything's not there. There is secrets still. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't a full thing. And that's cool. We're going to talk about this when we start doing front end stuff, like I think next week. But yeah, you could change some of these things, but there are a whole bunch of things in here that are more hidden than that. And the .env kind of is one of those things, one of the tricks for hiding stuff.
Okay. Thank you so much. And
For
see you
sure.
Thursday.
Yep. See you Thursday. Have a good one.
All right. Good night.
All right, bye.